use our full hour. I want to welcome everyone. I am Marjorie McKee, and I am the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for MD Logics, which is home to bhworks, the student mental health software system. If you would not mind putting into the chat your name, your organization, your state. And because we're going to talk about a variety of assessments today, as well as data that you might be collecting, just note which ones you're using currently, whether that's the Columbia Suicide Rating, or it's the GAD, or it's the Behavioral Health Screen. We also want you to share if there's something that happened in this school year. I know we're wrapping up. If there was something that worked for you that could be used by others, feel free to put that in the chat and we'll talk about it a little later. And then please put your questions in the chat. I will get to them. And then whether it's during Sean's presentation or it's afterwards, there should be plenty of time for dialogue. If everyone joins who says they're going to, we're going to have 18 states represented today. So thank you for being here with us at the multi-state. If this is the first time that you are joining us, the collaborative was organized in 2022, and it was specifically to help those who are working to prevent, treat, and solve youth behavioral and health, mental health issues. So you can collectively share either best practices, something didn't work. We meet every quarter, and usually all of you give me ideas in terms of what might be of interest to you and helpful to you. We do have a web page. This meeting, all our meetings are recorded, and we do share the slide deck. So you need to just go to this web page probably in about a week, and I will send you an email when it's ready for you to take a look at the recording or take a look at the slides. So the purpose of the collaborative, as I said, is share best practices. We have had topics on referral. Today we're talking about assessments and data. We've talked about expanding Medicaid, reporting, care management. While the common thread here is more than likely that you use bhworks, it is not a requirement to participate in these meetings. We are all dedicated to helping as many students as possible, so we just want to share solutions that work. We also do talk about grant funding resources because sustainability is so important in your projects. We just had a meeting about that in December of last year, and I know some of you might be applying for the GLS that's due on June 3rd. And then we also share national policy and evidence-based trainings. So today we have a very special guest, Sean Perry, who is the founder and CEO of We R H.O.P.E, based in Vermont, and he also has schools in New Hampshire. And he has been his team has been a bhworks user for 3 years. And following Sean's presentation, then I'm going to talk a little bit about the behavioral health screen that you also have contained in the bhworks system. So Sean is going to talk to us about mental health coaching and anxiety and some of the outcomes that he's been experiencing over the last 3 years. Sean?
Thank you, Marjorie. And hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday to you all. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope the weather is nice wherever you are. So before we get started, I'm going to kind of talk a little bit. Probably the vast majority of you on this call have probably never heard of We R H.O.P.E and exactly what we're doing. So I want to kind of give a little bit of a brief history before we get the slides kind of moving. So in 2016, my business partner, James Reinstein, and myself were working for the private mental health care system, where it costs families about $60,000 to $90,000 for about 60 to 90 days of inpatient or residential support. As a father of 5, I found that price point pretty astronomical, which I would assume most of us on this call do. And I realized that we were only helping the top or supporting the top 1%. And so I really start to think about, well, what about everybody else, right? What happens to everybody else? So over the next few weeks, I started kind of polling some of the kids that were at our residential center. And I should also mention that we would only support about 24 students max at a time. Our lowest numbers that I can recall were probably 10. And so when you're supporting just a small number of kids that are only the top 1%, so you're looking at the 1% of the 1%, you're not making a significant dent. So I started to ask these kiddos what kind of supports they had at home and what they were experiencing back when they were home. And one of the things that kept coming up was no one in my school understands. There's not enough support in my school. My parents don't understand. My teachers don't understand. And it got so bad that now I'm here. And I just thought that that was really disheartening, right? Like, what would happen if one of my kids began to struggle? I mean, yes, I was trained to support them, but I'm also their parent, so they're not going to listen to me. That's just the way that that goes, right? We all know that. So I had this idea because I had been a life coach for a while. And so I started asking these kiddos, what do you think, where do you think you would be if you had support while you were in school with people that understood this or understood anxiety? And the vast majority, I would say probably about 95%, maybe 90% of the kiddos would said to me, I don't think I'd be here. I think, having that support early on you know, would have been a godsend. And so I think that was sometime in November. Um, December 16th of 2016, somewhere around there. James and I had a conversation about this, kind of in secret, if you will, and We R H.O.P.E was born. And so what we do is we go into schools and support students 5 days a week for half an hour every single day for 60 to 90 days. So today, what we're going to be talking about is our evidence based on that 60 to 90 day exit and what we do in between and the efficacy of that work. Because this isn't just me saying, hey, we do this and it works. We've got data that shows it. We have a paper written that's published, and we have another one that's currently in the works on a way to being published. It's in review right now. So you can go ahead and move on, Marjorie. So one of the things that's important to understand is that we are a tier 2 intervention. So I'm going to automatically assume, which may not be the best way to do it, but most of you probably know what the MTSS system is. Think of it as a pyramid. On the bottom is tier 1, which are universal supports for all students. Tier 2s, when it gets a little bit wonky, you might have some 504s and some IEPs. In tier 3, I like to think of tier 3 are the kids that everybody knows is struggling, and they're always going to get support. But our tier 2 kiddos are the ones that are consistently falling through the cracks because their behaviors in a lot of cases aren't large enough for the school at times to really notice, right? They may have lost a parent, they may have lost a cat, they may be struggling with some moderate anxiety or even some significant anxiety, but they're not causing a significant behavioral issue in the building. And so what we know is that those kids become tier 3 kids. And so our main focus is to prevent those kiddos from becoming tier 3 kiddos. How do we get them back down to having the supports and services that they need? Because we know tier 3 is most definitely going to get the supports they need, but our tier 2 kids aren't, because a lot of them aren't even asking for the help. So we have private affordable coaching services. And what that means is when we are hired for, or when we go under contract with a school, our hourly rate is $70 an hour, right? Our private rate for families is only $17.50 per half hour. So the idea here is, how do we make sure that all children have access to some level of support? We also do some education and training around mental health literacy, emotional CPR, anxiety education for parents, schools, educators, and really kind of grandparents, anybody who wants to come and learn how they can not only support themselves, because I think when we take this information in, we've got to learn how to apply it to us, because if we don't understand how it represents in us, especially anxiety, we're never going to be able to understand how it represents in our kids. And so when we can connect with our kids or the youth in general with how we experience anxiety, then we can start to see their behavior in a different light. We have a saying here at We Are Hope, and that is, it's not about the behavior, it's about what's behind the behavior. And so we really believe that anxiety is the root cause of that. That is something that we significantly focus on. So again, let's go back really quickly. All of our sessions are 30 minutes, or roughly about 30 minutes long, for about 60 to 90 days. Each one of our coaches holds a caseload of 12 students per day. So we've been working with bhworks. We utilize the GAD-7 scale for assessment and diagnosis. And then every 30 days, we do that at intake, and every 30 days thereafter until the exit. We also use the screener. And one of the things we're doing with the screener this year, and I got some insight from my brilliant sister, who's a very well-known clinician in her field down in Connecticut. She suggested, which I think we're going to go, well, I know we're going to go with next year because she's going to be working for us. So she could tell me what to do. We're going to be utilizing the behavioral health screener, not only at intake, but the same way we use the GAD-7. And we're going to be given that screener every 30 days as well. The more data, the better, right? We can really get a handle on what's going on consistently. And one thing I'll also mention that we've added to bhworks is the loneliness scale. And so we're going to be adding that and tracking loneliness, right? The level of loneliness that a student has when they start with us versus when they end with us. And we'll probably be doing that every 30 days as well, so we can start to see the significance of when it started to shift, if that makes sense to everybody. So we use a program also called Pathways to Empower, which is a brain-based mental health literacy and wellness program. We work with the National Empowerment Center to bring emotional CPR to adults and students. And we have trauma-informed interactive services, suicide prevention, and collaborative problem solving. There's some of the things, other little kind of feathers in our cap that we utilize when working with our kiddos. Next slide. So I've been doing this for a long time. I think I'm almost over 2 decades now. I'm getting older. I might need to update that just a little bit. But you can see here, I've done a lot of stuff. And right now I'm actually, like, I don't have enough on my plate. I'm in the middle of my my MBA program. So the learning and the growth never stops for me. I got to stay busy, or I feel like I'm out of my mind a little bit. I sit on a few boards, and yeah, I love that work. Next, we can keep going up. So we've got some success stories, right, that I wanted to share with you that I think you guys will enjoy. So, I talked to you guys a little bit around what specifically we do and what that looks like through the day. But each one of our coaches that we bring in, although they follow our model as independent contractors, so that they understand the work that we need to be done, they get to kind of do it however they want. They get to roll it out however they want. There's some big specifics around the 30-day screeners and stuff like that. But for the most part of how they handle their session, it's they have free reign. And so we've seen some really amazing work that's happened with these coaches this year. And I've got a story, if we can move ahead. So this is the story of Caleb. When we look at their background, what we see is a huge history of violence. Previous placement twice in a behavioral institution, a lot of family upheaval, mother was incarcerated, siblings split into multiple foster homes, trouble in school, class with physical confrontations and such. Now, what I can tell you is that this kiddo specifically, I know because I spent a lot of time working in this school. I didn't work with this kiddo, but another coach did. And I would receive phone calls constantly of, how do we reach this child? This child is struggling significantly. But right away, what we decided to do was to focus on educating this kiddo around what was happening in their brain, maybe why they were doing some of the things they were doing, learning how to identify triggers, learning coping skills and prevent and trying to figure out how we can prevent physical confrontations. Mental health literacy played a huge role in this, right? How do I ask for help? Where do I go for help? Right? How do I identify what's going on with me in the moment, and how can I, again, ask for help within that? So problem solving with scripted scenarios. This is probably one of my favorite pieces. And a lot of the times you guys will hear role plays, right? You might do role plays with someone, or you might do role plays, or you might do role plays even in your work, like as you're practicing as educators or CEOs or whatever it is, whatever your role is. But I like to do real plays. And I learned real plays from the National Empowerment Center. And that is to take a real scenario, a real problem, and work through it, walk through the steps of what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and what my behavioral outcome is. That is, for us, we call that our CBT kind of model, right? Thoughts create emotions which impact or influence our behavior. So if I have a really large behavior, I can start to identify what I was feeling around that behavior and what my original thought was that caused that emotion to have that behavior. And so when we're teaching students this, we see great success. And so having a support system became a really big deal. What were the outcomes? This kiddo who was not doing well academically ended up getting straight A's in school. Now, I have to say, that is not the norm. So please don't call us in to say, hey, get all our kids straight A's. That is not the norm. This kiddo just really kind of fell in place here, and just really loved the work they were doing, and they really loved the coach that they were working with. But they also found stable and supportive family who are moving forward with an adoption. Now, I remember, because I received this call, that this family, during the early days of us just starting to work with this kid, were rethinking adoption. They were rethinking adoption. So think about that for a minute. They were thinking, like, maybe this is not going to work out for us. Maybe this kiddo's not a right fit for our family. And that was really, that kind of broke my heart a little bit, right? And I was like, well, wait a second, hold on, we gotta figure this out. So our coach did an amazing job, which is not up here, really helping to coach the parents through what the student needed. And we do that with a lot of our parents who, by the way, who want to do the work, because we got a ton of parents that don't, and we have a bunch of parents that do. And then we worked on simple things like not engaging in physical violence. What are the other avenues that I have? Right? You know, telling on someone doesn't make you a snitch. Snitches get stitches. Like, this is the mentality of our kids, right? Another student's bother me. So, but if I tell, then I look weak. If I tell, then I'm a snitch. No, your mental health is the most important thing, right? We'll figure out the rest. And then feeling more resilient, supported to better behaviors. And so this kiddo's success story is, that thing that you write home about. It's why it's in our right. This is the reason that it's on my PowerPoint, because we're so proud of the work that this coach has done with this kiddo, and he's done a lot of work with a lot of other kids. But this story in particular this year was really powerful, and we have some other ones as well, which I'll get to. If we can skip, I don't have it in here, the story. We can go back to the other one, but I want to talk about something specific. So when we talk about our data, you guys can go ahead and use the QR code. That's our study, the data that I was talking about earlier. But I want to touch on the screener, the data that we're receiving, and why it's important, and talking about success stories. We work with a lot of high schoolers, middle schoolers, elementary school kids. The behavioral health screen that we have used has literally saved lives. It has saved lives. We have found kiddos that were actively suicidal that no one had any idea about. We have found out via this screener that girls and boys were both sexually assaulted or molested or whatever. And this has saved these kids from a lot more heartache and pain by being able to get them the resources and support. And so when you go in and you look at this data here, you will see that the work that we have done has really been effective in such a short period of time. Next slide. In this screener, within this data pool within the QR code, we took 194 participants, 30 female. I'm not going to read all of what they are, but what's important is that in a small data pool, so the one with the QR code is a different one. The new one is the one that I don't have listed here, but this is a pull from it. If you go to the next slide, please, what you'll see is that our results are much different than other people's results. And you might say, how the heck are they getting a 77.4% decrease in anxiety in 60 to 90 days? And it's really over the 90 days. And the reason that we are able to do this is by consistency in support. Okay, consistency. We are front loading and power loading our support. We're not saying come see us 1 day a week. We're not saying come see us 2 days a week. We are meeting with these kiddos consistently 5 days a week and working on these skills to make sure that they have consistent support. As a football coach, I used to coach football. I've since kind of stepped back for a little bit because it's just another thing that I have to do, right? So as a football coach, one of the things that I learned really quickly was, and I was a receiver and quarterback coach, if I wanted my quarterback to practice his mechanics to be the best quarterback he could be, or to work on this slant route, or to work on this long ball, he couldn't just do it on Monday. This is something that we had to carve out Monday through Friday, because we played on Saturdays. That he had to carve out Monday through Friday, a little bit of time, so that he had muscle memory in order to do this thing right. So what we're saying to our kids is, and what we're saying to all of you, is consistency in support will allow for these skills, these coping skills, these strategies, all the things that we're working on to be able to get this level of success by making sure that we're front loading it and making sure that the kids have what they need day in and day out. Now, there's a lot of other steps that we go into as far as working with the parents, working with the educators. We send out weekly reports every single week so that everybody that is associated with that student knows exactly what's going on. Every month we send out, attached to that weekly summary, we then send out their latest data pull, where they're at and what the data looks like. Next. So before I send you, quote unquote, home, which I'm not actually sending you home because we have some time, I want to just touch on really quickly what we're moving to next. So some of you are probably sitting there saying, well, Sean, how in the world are schools paying for your services, right? What does that look like? And so what I'll tell you is that in our current model, each one of our coaches, the best way to look at it would be about $77,000 a year, 77.5. We do that based on the hours worked in a school. We do that based on how many school days in a school year. We multiply it by $70 per hour, 6 hours a day. The number spits out, it's around 75 or 77, depending on a district. So over the last several years, we have been working extremely hard to find a way to make this even more financially feasible to districts. Because if I send a coach to a school, yeah, $77,000 isn't really a lot of money, right? But if I'm in the entire district, right, depending on how many schools, we're over $500,000 to sometimes $1 million, depending on the size of the district. So over the last several years, we've been really working, what can we do? And early on, I had a superintendent who said to me, Sean, I see what you're saying, but I can tell you right now that financially, this cannot be feasible for a long period of time for a district. This is going to be, a 5-year plan, and then they're going to have to figure something else out if they have those resources, blah, 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 blah. What I will say is that I am extremely happy to announce that We R H.O.P.E now has its own NPI number, which will change the trajectory of how we are able to support our schools and our families. What that means for us is that instead of schools paying per coach, they will pay a flat rate for us to be in the district. And then the coaches, along with our therapists, who will then oversee, as we'll be billing through our therapists, who will then bill through us, we'll be able to bill Medicaid and other insurances as well. So we are constantly trying to transform what we do to be more to be better suited for the ever-changing academic or school world. What I'll also say in the background is that We R H.O.P.E is also currently working on our first ever therapeutic boarding and day school. Plans have already been drawn up. We're waiting for the blueprints now to be able to offer this level of support for students that cannot be in the school building, that are really struggling therapeutically to make it to school every day. So thank you so much for your time. I'm really happy to be here, and I thank bhworks for always bringing me in to share some insight.
Thank you so much, Sean. I did not know you were pursuing your MBA, but it does not surprise me. When you need something done, you ask a busy person, and you are definitely a busy person. I am going to go through the chat, but this is an opportunity. We're just going to take a break from the presentations, and we do have time for discussion, questions, to ask of Sean, comments about his work. Please either raise your hand or just unmute yourself and ask away. And I'm going to look at the chat.
Marjorie,
Yes.
was there was another slide that you did want me to discuss, right? And I feel like I didn't hit that. Do you want to talk about it after?
I'll bring that up.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Thank you. Hold on one second, Sean. You're right. There was, Sean, I added these because he has added this data to his website. He makes it publicly available. And again, this is the assessment. They use the generalized anxiety disorder, the GAD-7. And he did put the results for, this is 2022 school year to 2023. So he puts the scale there. And then I put, when you get the slide deck, it'll take you to this page. So he is telling you what his data is for this particular school year. So this included 346 students across 18 schools. As he mentioned, the 30, 60, 90, 120 days plus exit. And then if they started, as this shows, at a 9.9 at intake, they were finished at a 5.1 upon exit. And again, I think it's showing outcomes, and you can certainly ask questions of him in terms of his process. But I wanted to share that as well, in addition to the slides he offered.
So can I touch on that really quickly, Marjorie, which
Yeah.
I think is really important. So you'll notice here at the 120 mark, we added 120 2 years ago. Normally a kiddo was exited at 90. What we found was that some of our students did need some extra support. Those kiddos that needed extra support at 120 when we screened knew that there was no other 120. There was not another marker. And so we see those kiddos get a little bit more anxious on the way out to the exit. Okay. So we see this spike in some of our, if we go to like an individual school, we might see that 90 spike, shoot right kind of back up a little bit because their coach, they believe that they're never going to see their coach again, not realizing like the coach is in the building, we're going to be around, it's okay, it's not that big of a deal. And then again, when we still screen that kiddo for the exit, several days or several weeks later, we do see that drop again. So don't let the data fool you of like, what the heck happened at 120? It's only 14 kids out of the 346. And it's those kiddos that wanted to stay in the program. And we see that happen a lot, but you do see a consistency in reduction. And again, I just want to correlate this piece. We're looking at roughly about a 50% of reduction here. And the other one was a 77, but remember that was a smaller pool based on the data of the kiddos that we screened there. So I don't want any confusion. I just want to make sure that we're clear of, we're going to have some schools that we have some schools that are 75, 80% reduction, while we have some others that are, 30 or 20, right? Depending on what's going on in that school district.
All right, so if anybody, you want to either raise your hand or put it in the chat, I'm just going to scroll through the chat to see if there are any questions. I see Dana asked, will you share about how the schools create referral pathways to your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. So which I didn't talk about, I mentioned it briefly, but we partner with the MTSS coordinator, right? So we work with the MTS coordinator to find out who's in tier two. And then that kiddo goes through the process, or the MTSS coordinator goes through the process of filling out our referral form. Once that referral form is filled out, which is then uploaded into bhworks, it's then approved or denied, believe it or not, based on if they misled us and that kiddo's a tier 3 student, which doesn't happen often, but it can happen, because sometimes they'll say, like, well, we really just need this kiddo to get support, and we're like, well, they're already out of class X amount of times a day, and then we find out, they're not going to be able to get the support they want anyway, because the parents aren't going to sign off on the kiddo just not academically being in school. So it kind of wears itself out that way.
Rose has a question. Can you explain the kind of training your coaches receive, or if they have any licensures or certifications?
Yep, great question. So all of our coaches are certified life coaches. We don't do any therapy whatsoever. They're all trained in CBT modality, and they're all teaching mental health literacy. So because of the style of work that we're doing, our main focus is that life coaching model with the education aspect of it. So if anything major comes up, we refer out, they get the supports and services that they need. Hence one of the reasons also that we are shifting over to having clinical supervision with all of our coaches. We've always had clinical supervision, but this is going to be a little bit more in depth, where our clinician does all of the screeners when they come in, prescribes the coaching as a support, which has been shown through lots and lots of data to be able the coaching is to be able to be a support, and then we will coach our kiddos within that realm based on the clinician's I'm losing my train of thought there. Based on what the clinician wants us to do, and then treatment plan. Based on a treatment plan, and then after working on the treatment plan, then every 30 days, the clinician will then come back in, meet with the student, make sure that all the coaching is following in a line in the way that we're doing it, and go from there. So every coach that works with us is a certified life coach. Some of them are therapists. Some of them have PhD. I have coaches that have PhDs. I have coaches that are ex-teachers, paras. They come from all walks of life. But the number one thing that they have to do is be a life coach and have that modality, because we don't want to cross the line between life coaching and therapy.
Tiara.
I hope that answers your question.
Tiara?
Hey, so I just had a really quick question around environment. So is this a program that would work better for smaller schools and smaller school districts, or rural communities as opposed to cities?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I believe what we have found is that it works in all districts. The biggest piece is the school's buy-in. I have seen buy-in in inner city, and I've seen no buy-in in a very small school district or a very small school. If we don't have the buy-in from the top down, it doesn't matter where we are. The program will not be successful because people are not bought into it. And when I say bought into it, when I say the buy-in, I'm talking about from the educators in the building to the administrators in the building to the clinicians in the building and to the counselors in the building. That's our biggest obstacle, right?
Okay.
And
the reason why I ask is right now we have a program here in New York State where we provide support to different school districts, and this in 26 school districts. So the school district can range from 400 students up to 14,000 14,000 students. And what we're finding, and this transitions into my next question, how have you overcome the challenges with like the workforce? So what we're finding is like, I get that your team has, what you say, 12 youth on their caseload.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's glorious for people who have 60 to 80 students on
That's
a
the difference.
caseload, right? So how are you overcoming the workforce challenges?
You just answered it. We work our coaches work 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. They work 30 hours. Great work-life balance, right? That's key for us in this field, right? We also, so for instance, let's say you have one of those schools, let's call it a high school with, 14,000 people. I don't know, right? If we need more than one coach, we hire more than one coach. So our coach will only see 12 students for 60 to 90 days, and then they'll get more kiddos in. Other kiddos are not allowed on their caseload. It's not the way that we do business. We're very clear. So what we do is we just bring in more coaches within that piece. And how we're able to do that is that we have a different business model than most, actually than anybody. And so because of our model, we have those counselors that have been school counselors that have been in this field for so long that are saying, wait a second, I can go do that, make more money, and still work with kids and love my job. I want to go do that. Like when the day's over, you mean it's over? I'm not going to get an email from you. I'm not going to get a phone call from you. I don't have parents reaching out to me. That's correct. When the day's over, the day's over. So we attract people because of the way that we run this specific modality.
So what happens to little Caleb after 90 days or 120 days?
Yeah, great question. And that's my son's name. So what happens to Caleb after 90 days or 120 days is as we are getting to that process of this kiddo's ready to be exited out, we have already started the process of who is your trusted adult? Where do you go when you're struggling? What is the plan? So we have an entire exit plan and strategy for this child that we have worked with their teacher, with their parents, with their counselors, with their special ed person, whoever it is. This is what we're doing on the way out. And if little Caleb in 30 days says, "Hey, I want to go see Mr. Sean," little Caleb can come say hi to me, high five me, and we can hang out for a hot second, right? But the idea is that now little Caleb's going to go practice these skills on a regular basis. And so that's the thing. There's a big plan that's put in place that everybody knows about that we've worked on, and we're getting insight from everybody also. Will this plan work? And we start to implement that plan long before. So we have what I should mention is that there's a 3-2-1 step down process. So when we're getting to that exit, we're saying, all right, so for this first week, so remember, we see every student for 5 days a week. We're going to say we're dropping down to 3 days a week. We're seeing how that goes. Here's the plan that's currently in place. Now, those other 2 days, we're depending on our caseload and what's kind of going on. If they have another kiddo in the wings, we might start that another kiddo in those 2 days. But we're working Caleb down 3 days 1 week, 2 days another week, and 1 day another week. Now, if we get down to 1 week and everybody's like, wait a second, this is not working. He needs a little bit more. He needs a little bit struggle. That all of a sudden you'll see that from that 90, you'll see that 120 kind of pop up a little bit, and we'll get that 120 back in for some support and make sure that we're trying to figure out where are we missing with Caleb. But what I'll say to that is now with this new therapeutic oversight and having a therapist meet with our kiddos every 30 days also, we're going to be able to find this out a lot sooner and see if there's any other deeper changes happening within the home and make sure that we can get that support much quicker.
And I have one more question. This is my last question. I promise
Sure.
Marjorie and everybody else. So let's say Caleb came and saw you year one. I know that you've been doing this for 3 years. You said you've been working with bhworks.
With bhworks, but we've been doing this for
Okay.
7 years.
So perfect. So I come in, right? I'm 14 years old or I'm 13 years old and you're working with me. What happens when, like, are you following me and tracking your results from when I turned 15, 16 years old? Because literally, like, everything's changing. You're in transition, all that jazz. Like, how effective is the program when it comes to just being a teenager and life is hard?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. That is something that we have talked a lot about on how do we continue to track said student later on. One of the things that's happened for us, and I guess we've kind of been lucky this way with the schools that we currently work with, is that the school is automatically tracking it, right? Like they're automatically gathering that data, so we can go in and say, hey, we want to check and see how so and so is doing. They'll let us know how we're doing. Plus, we're going to see you in a hall and be like, hey, how's it going? Right? Like we're like, we don't say we saw you 2023, right? End of 2023, and now it's September 2024. We don't say see you later. In fact, let's say you end with us, like let's say you're a kiddo that you're ending with us right now. You're actually, even if you exited in the beginning of June as school ends or middle of June when school ends, you're our first kiddo that we work with in September. We automatically follow back up with you. And then we check in on our entire caseload that we worked with the previous year to see if any of those kids are struggling again before we get started with new students.
Sierra, thank you. And Dana did, they were very good questions, and I'm sure you were offering up questions that others had too. So you can
Great question.
You can ask questions anytime you want, any and all. So we have about 20 minutes, a little less than, well, no, we're more like 15 minutes left. So I'm just going to go through, because we're talking about assessments. And I wanted folks to know, in case you were not aware, I hope you are, but we do have the behavioral health screen, which is referred to as the BHS in bhworks. And again, it is identifying mental health problems and psychosocial risk factors. And it covers all the domains that you see listed there, not only suicidality, but eating disorders, self-harm, psychosis, gun access, physical or sexual abuse, your general medical health and safety practices. And there are different versions of the BHS. There's an elementary level for multiple age groups and care settings. And in addition to the BHS, there are tens and over 100 different types of screeners and intake forms in bhworks. So in case you didn't know that, now you do. And this is just a screenshot from bhworks. And I know some of you put in, when I asked if in the chat, just let me know which screeners you use, PHQ-9, GAD-7. I saw Michigan uses a universal screener. And just to note, with the behavioral health screen, it is a collaboration. It was started 2009, 8 or 9, with CHOP, and it has been validated and researched. And we do have the articles for scientific-based evidence. So what I wanted to share is Pennsylvania is one of our clients. We have over 70% of the counties that have a student assistance program, SAP, that use the BHS within bhworks. And since 2014, those SAP agencies have screened over 35,000, and there were 4,500 child screens, the elementary level. And I just wanted to show some of the data that they recently shared at a meeting that they had in terms of what are the, within the SAP cohort, the behavioral health screen, what were the ages 12 to 24? It's a little higher in age, but what were the suicide and related risk factors? So they're getting this data. And again, whatever their assessment is, and then moving forward with treatment, referral treatment, monitoring that treatment, and getting these issues addressed. So 7% had current suicidal ideation, where they had a history of it. Almost 60% had significant anxiety, and this was based on a population of 13,000 students in Pennsylvania. PTSD, they had eating disorders, and of course, substance use. So I wanted to share that with you because not everyone's aware of the behavioral health screen, and it is a very important screen. It's encompassing. You can slice and dice it the way you need it, depending on what you're looking for. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity to alert you to it. We have about 15 minutes left for any additional questions. I'm going to say BHS, thank you for correcting me, Alan, started in 2005 with the concept. And I think it took a few years, obviously, to get into the field. Let's see, PJ Wenger, who's in New Jersey, had a question. I was under the impression you had to have a license to be trained in CBT.
You have to have, if you're going to do CBT therapy, absolutely. We do not do CBT therapy.
And Sean, just so folks are aware, you're headquartered in Vermont, but you have expanded to some schools in New Hampshire. And I'm assuming is it K through 12? It can be K through 12. Okay.
Yeah, so we're in Vermont now. We also have schools in New Hampshire, and then we had a district or schools down in Arkansas for a couple of years, one in Connecticut, and currently right now we're working on a school district outside of Philadelphia right now.
Okay. Anybody have other comments, questions about assessments within bhworks? How are your assessments going? How is the data that you're generating? Is it working for you? We're towards the end of the school year, and we can always kind of reflect to say, oh, this worked better for us versus something else. Anybody want to offer up a comment, share?
So towards Tiara's point of data across the country in school systems, and we work in about 20% of the states at a state level. It's not unusual, Tiara, to have a caseload for school providers of somewhere between 20 to 50. Usually some of the students you can have a quick counseling, and you can work through their challenges, but other students are a significant caseload. So I think what you are talking about in terms of a much higher caseload for your providers is reality, and I can show you some of the national data. Because of our work across the nation, we are seeing some of that. And we have a pretty good idea nationally because we are almost, we are in the East Coast and Midwest and in the West Coast. Although not every state, because some states, there are many political challenges to deal with, but across the states, that is about how it is. And we have pretty good data nationally because of the work we're doing on what are the referral reasons, how are they being solved, and the states we're working with are able to do some comparisons because of the data we have in terms of, okay, my suicide ideation referrals are much higher. Now, that doesn't actually always mean that, their kids have a higher suicide ideation rate. There's lots of factors that go into this. Some of those factors could be recognition. They just have better recognition, and that their school staff and providers have been taught how to recognize this better. So that is the data that gets put in. So but there is national data available, and as we get more and more data, it helps clarify some of these issues. I don't know if anyone's interested in it, but I'm happy to show some of this data and work through this with you. And maybe that's one of the future multi-collaborative meetings, because I think this data is very important to everybody.
Yes,
Yes,
please.
and Tiara said, yes, please. And yeah, I don't know if you have the ability to share the screen, Goswami, if you want to quickly pop it up. We will conclude by 4 o'clock. So we have a few minutes, and if you can't find it, then
Yeah, maybe show the distribution of referral reasons. It's pretty
Yeah, so when you look at caseloads, here is the unique number of participants, and then here is the number of providers. Hopefully you can see my screen.
yes, we can.
So you can see, it is about what you were saying, Tara. It is, about 50 to 1. But some of the students don't need a lot of services. Some of the students are probably just, a one-time meeting, and that's okay. That's why this average time spent is 27 minutes, right? And then here is the services they're being provided, what they're being billed to. So there is lots and lots of data we have in BH nationally, and this is just probably about 10% of the data that I'm showing you, but there is lots and lots of data that is available, and so you can make comparison, you can think through some of these, what's going on nationally. There is, again, like if you look at reasons for referrals, we have data across the nation. And then you can drill down or drill up. You know exactly what's going on in terms of nationally what's going on in our system. Obviously, there's lots of other things going on, but we have, again, what I was saying is we have states across the country working with us, and it gives you very good information on what are the referral reasons, what is going on nationally, and what is the suicide ideation referral reason, data. Obviously, once you do a deeper analysis, because the system sort of helps you progress through what you're doing, then you can get more details. So there's lots and lots of information, that we have available, and obviously we work closely with SAMHSA and
CDC.
CDC and others,
Okay.
to look together at what's going on and what can be done about it. So yeah, we do have the statistics. We know what's going on, and I think that in terms of comparisons can be very helpful to everybody.
So Goswami, there's a question: is it possible to show the number of times one unique individual has been referred? Maybe one case was closed, but then, this would be an individual with two cases.
Yes, absolutely. That is within the system. And the reason for referral can not only be just for a behavioral mental health issue, but it can be for truancy, because truancy associates with it. It could be for various different reasons. And since the system covers all of that, you can absolutely see those reasons, and we have correlations between those. And this is very important to now SAMHSA and ONC, because as probably most of you know, some of what's going on is they are looking at their reporting instruments, like the NOMS and the GIPRA, and they're seeing that they're not getting substantial or enough value out of it. So they're asking some of the grantees, how can we improve that? And we have also been speaking with them to look at, here is a perspective, it may not be the ideal one, but we have lots of data and we can see that. And just like with the BHS earlier on, Marjorie was showing you some of the data in PA. There are lots of studies about this, and we can absolutely share those. So I think there are assets together that we have that is making a difference nationally, and we are improving behavioral mental health because the school systems with early detection and intervention are making a great difference. Now, there is a mandate from HHS and from Javier Becerra's office to really push some of this. And that's why you're seeing a lot of funding out there regarding the same. And I think we have a real opportunity together to really make a difference nationally. And it'll take time. It's not overnight, but I think together we are making a difference, and we will continue to work together with all of you to do whatever we can to make a difference nationally.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Goswami. And the other comment was like, can we look at referral reasons by provider? And I know Dana jumped in and said she can show that person how to view provider specific reports. So when we say
there is all sorts of data that's available. Obviously, we want to be careful because by provider, it can have, information that those providers don't want to share.
Yeah, and Noel is a provider, an active, yeah. And it's really active in tier 2. So I'm glad you're on, Noel.
Thank you, Dana. Look forward to you showing me some more on how to pull up these reports.
Yeah. And just a reminder is that we are HIPAA compliant, this, security protocols. We have other standards, federal standards, NIST standards that we have met. And so that data is precious, important. It's yours. And we take very good care of it. Just so as we end the meeting, one, I want to thank all of you for your time. I know it's a busy time of year as you conclude for the schools attendance anyway, for the students. As I mentioned at the beginning, you're going to receive the speaker slides you saw today and a link to the video recording of this and share it. It's public. And then the third quarter collaborative meeting will be sometime maybe late August, maybe September. I know that's just a tough time for everybody, so we'll figure it out. And I will let you know what the subject matter is as we get closer to that date. We already have some ideas about a potential panel. And just in case, I did put for Team MD Logics, Dana Walburn is on, and she's our business development manager, previously worked in the state of Nevada. And this is my contact information. Any information you want about bhworks and MD Logics, there's additional contact information. And I just want to, again, thank Sean Perry so much. I admire and respect what he's been doing all these 7 years of, it's pretty incredible what he's achieved and seeing the results for his kiddos, and that's what we're all here for. So thank you, Sean, so much for sharing your successes, and I wish everybody a terrific rest of the day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thank you.